Hi friends, I am Marie Woods, founder of 𝒊𝒏𝒅𝒂 Foundation, your host, a professional counselor, family and marriage therapist, and wholeness life coach. Welcome to Relationship Real Talk, the podcast where we dive deep and tackle the toughest relationship challenges Christians face today. Are you tired of struggling with unforgiveness, past wounds, and conflicts? Feeling lonely or having trouble communicating? Wrestling with trust issues or trying to balance your faith with your relationship goals? Feeling stuck and stagnant in your relationship? You are in the right place. Here at the Relationship Real Talk, we get real and cover a wide range of topics, including relationship anxiety, trauma bonds, infidelity, estrangement, toxic dynamics, dating after divorce, and how to heal from relationship trauma and grow and build healthy and lasting relationships. We're not just about identifying the problems. We're all about finding real, integrated solutions from multiple disciplines and offering professional help from different fields to mend and strengthen your relationships. So, let's get started on this journey together, one honest, heartfelt conversation at a time. Today's episode, I have our speaker, 𝒊𝒏𝒅𝒂 with us. 𝒊𝒏𝒂𝒂, she is a certified professional coach, author, and speaker. As a Christian entrepreneur, she is a CEO and the founder of her own virtual love and relationship coaching practice. I'm exceedingly happy to have Linda come back with us. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. So good to be here, Marie. I'm excited for our conversation today.
As we started this big concept of love and relationships, I know that's your expertise, that's your practice in coaching, and I'm so glad to have you to talk about, dating relationship. How does that look like to our audience? We had 2 episodes before today, so I just want to briefly mention about them. Like the session 1, we talk about dating, just generally dating. What does dating look like? And what's the biblical dating to Christians look like? So the session 2, we talk about attract the right person. That's gotta really have someone for everyone. You have used the scripture and you explain to us how should we set our right mindset and to attract the right person into our lives. Fascinating topic. I hope our audience can go back and re-listen, or if you haven't listened to them, and I highly encourage you to listen to them. Today, we come to our 3rd episode, which I think is a tough topic, but is very much needed topic for some of folks out there. So it's the challenge and the breakups. Before we start, and I just want you to give our audience a broad view in dating relationship, how it ends, and how can we end it in a gracious way, in a kind of way, in a peaceful way. So there's questions I'm going to ask you during this episode, but I want to ask you first and let you talk to our audience about this topic.
Okay, thank you, Marie. This is a great topic, and I have grown children and grandchildren, and my grandson is in high school, and he had his first crush, I guess, a couple of years ago. They talked in the hallway. I think he was in early middle school, talked in the hallway. He made her a couple of little cards, and this went on for a few months, and then she decided that she was no longer interested. And I loved what my daughter and grandson told him, because he was going through the feelings he was going through, and certainly they were supportive of that, but they just said, unless a relationship is the one that you're going to marry, which is very rare when you're in junior high and high school, though it happens now and then, there will be a breakup and there will be another relationship after that. So I thought that's just wise for all of us. When we're in relationships, God gives us relationships. God gives us friendships. Sometimes friendships come and go. Sometimes we live in a house that that comes and goes, we move. So I know love relationships are probably the toughest. There are lots of Shakespearean plays about love relationships, and they can feel really tragic and painful, because to be loved, and God has a gift of a loving partner for each and every one of us that is the one that he has chosen. To be loved is really a core need, a core desire. And so when we're going through a breakup, it isn't as minimal as, oh, I forgot to buy milk when I was at the store, you know, a loss of something that we really intended to have for ourselves. It's really a very serious thing. And at the same time, we can, besides living in the moment, being in prayer, asking God's comfort and healing, and treating the other person with respect, feeling the courage to just be and live in it, to know that God has something else for us, to not be in a hurry for it. And it can happen in a short amount of time. And most of us, at least the clients that I have and in my life, we kind of want to go right into another relationship, or sometimes it's so painful we think we'll never go into one again. No matter how we're feeling, it's really a lot of wisdom to just, how am I feeling today? And how can I honor how I'm feeling today? Take care of the person that God has made me to be. Honor the person that is, you know, the one that we are breaking up with, or has broken up with us, or we've broken up with, however it has ended. Perhaps it ends in divorce, or even in death, which is another whole loss that we need to deal with. So being in the moment, feeling those feelings, honoring that, including God in it for sure, and then also staying in hope, knowing that he has something for us in the future, that there's something even better that comes next.
So this is something I'd like to dive in deeper with you. I know folks out there, our listeners, they have probably been through some heartaches because the breakups, the things didn't work out. So in my understanding, you know, the relationship can become either friendship later on if we two people cannot become lifetime partner, let's just say. Maybe they end up being friends. Okay. Or if the relationship really is toxic, unhealthy, and that breakup bounds, that can be harder, right? For the person, it's like the relationship is dead. So there's different levels and the losses of the breakups. And also people go through different emotions and the feelings when they go through the process of breakups. So Linda, let's back up a little bit. Talk about the challenges when breakup happens, or separation, whatever it can be. What are those challenges you have seen?
Yeah, there are so many. It's hard to just even start with one. And I know that the people who are listening are fully aware of that. One of the challenges is to think about what kind of gift there is in this breakup. And it's like a Pollyanna sort of idea, like, okay, what can I learn from this? Well, we're not feeling that. But to think about what can I learn from this relationship, and what was my part? And I have been in a marriage with an addict. So, and I've also been in another marriage. I've been married twice before with a narcissist. So both times when the relationship ended, I felt really justified and like I had no part of what went wrong. And really, it's important to acknowledge the seriousness of an addiction, the role that it plays, and the enemy steals our relationship from us. Each person has responsibility there, but as I learned in the 12-step program in Al-Anon, I can't change another person. But what I can look at is myself. What do I want to change about myself? And the same with having been married to a narcissist. That person was who he was and is probably still, though I don't stay in communication with him. We don't have children from that relationship. But what was my role in that? And really spending some time healing from that. And I really think having someone else help us with that, a therapist or a coach, because we can't always see objectively what's happening. We just know the pain in our hearts. We know the thoughts that we have and the feelings that we have about it. And we don't want to let go of the idea that, no, this was all blamed on me, but it wasn't all me. And that's a really important thing to acknowledge, because gaslighting can happen and we can be blamed, and it can be friends or family who blame us. So I'm not talking about accepting all the blame and saying it was all my fault. because that's a process to walk through for ourselves, to honor ourselves. We were doing the best we could at the moment. And actually, so was that person, honoring, forgiving them. There's so many challenges involved in a breakup, but there's so much richness. There's such a gift. There's so many gifts in it. And to allow ourselves some time to receive those gifts, to honor that healing time, and to really get some help. Because I think it's the key time of any is to get some help with transitioning from one relationship to another if we want another relationship. And that's why I think we're talking today, because we're talking about really dating after going through a breakup.
Dating after going through breakups. Follow what you were saying is that how can a person to realize after breakups, to realize, oh, I am responsible in the previous relationship. What's the part that I have played? What's my responsibility? How can I, and to grow, how can I heal from the brokenness that I feel and move on from this point and really grow from this point on and be prepared for the next person.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest fears, and for me, after my second marriage, I thought, well, I'm a grandmother. I had a wonderful relationships, and I've had a lot of life, and I love the life I'm in, and I don't think there's another relationship for me. But God did tap me on the shoulder and say, no, I have someone for you. And then I thought, like, what am I supposed to do now? Because I was so afraid of repeating those same two types of relationships that I was almost frozen, and working through that and realizing, why did I choose the people that I chose in the past? Why did I choose that? What was my thought process? Were there any red flags, we say, yellow flags, red flags that I missed? Or were there red flags that I chose to not see because I was so interested in the other parts of this person? In our last session, we talked about how to choose God's chosen person for us, how to make that choice. So we want to let go of the things that we chose in the past that were either toxic or somehow didn't work, become more of the person God wants us to become, be more clear on his choice for us, and then becoming more of the enlightened. And I think there's levels of attraction. I think we've talked about that before, but to be the highest level of attraction, to attract a person who is that high integrity, God-honoring, mature Christian person that we're looking for, we want to have God's help in becoming more and more of a match for that person.
I am reminded, yes, in our first couple episodes, we talked extensively, in the depths of how we can become the person that healthy, confident ourselves, and then attract the person who have the same level of energy. We talk about energy level, our mindsets, our every aspect that we can find a person that is compatible in most of the aspects of our lives. So yeah, I'm reminded, sometimes when people, they are in the relationship for, let's say, maybe 2-3 months or so, for a while, and they probably don't feel this relationship is right fit for them. But they have a hard time to make a decision. Should I break up? Should I just remain in the relationship? Until later on when things really happened. And that's kind of a little bit late and cause more damage than early on. Just say, hey, this is not a good fit. That's the end of the relationship. Do you have something to speak to this area, to folks out there kind of hesitating, struggling, should I stay or should I end?
Yeah, I love that. I love that because that comes up so often. And what one of my coaches said, I've trained with several coaches and had worked with coaches for my own relationships. She said, one, keep dating until you know you don't want to with this person. And at the end of each time you see someone, I think maybe we mentioned this in the first session, was the only question to ask ourselves after a date is, do I want to see this person one more time? But like you said, after you've been in a relationship for maybe a few months and you're wondering, do I stay in this? Is this something that's going anywhere or not? Going back to our list of important things, what are your values? What are the things that are deal breakers? What are the things that are have to haves? And even if you're, I think I maybe mentioned I had 5, and it was, financial, spiritual, physical, adventure, and I always forget whichever the 5th one is, and it's different things, but kind of narrow it down to 5 themes so I can remember them. I had them in an index card in my purse. And when you're dating someone who has 4 out of 5, maybe, or even 4.5 out of 5, it's tempting to just stay and to just try to keep making it work. And we don't always know if they are the person or not, but really, prayerfully, we move forward. But that main thing, our main spiritual need is and desire is a godly man that God has chosen for us. And one of my clients right now is in a relationship with a guy who has all the other 4, but spiritually isn't a Christian yet. And, God leads. She really is very prayerful in her relationship, and he is open to what she has to say. But certainly before any commitments made, before anything serious happens, we need to make sure we're aligned and not unequally yoked. So I'll say that first. When it comes to the middle ground ones, well, I was hoping for someone taller. I was hoping for someone who made more money. I was hoping for someone who, had brown hair or whatever it is. The prayerful times and journaling comes into place there a lot. Is just, what is my heart saying? This is what I'm afraid of, or this is what I just don't like, or this is what I'm seeing that happens every time we get together, but I'm just hoping that changes. Those are all really things that are serious to ponder. We're not here to change anyone. The relationship with the right person will flow easily, comfortably. God will roll it out in front of us. Usually it goes pretty fast. So I'm not saying, oh my goodness, if you've been dating someone for 6 months to a year and you're still wondering, that's not a red flag, but to just know that some things between 6 months and a year in general should resolve, and you should get clarity, and you should know, especially for my clients who are mostly 50 and over. I do have some clients in their late 20s and 30s and 40s. We don't want to waste a lot of time, if we call it wasting time. Don't stay in a relationship for 2 years hoping that it's going to turn around and turn into something, because in general, I mean, there's statistics, probably 99% of the time, there's something that isn't working there that you need to say, okay, stop for a minute. Is this really where I want to go? Maybe even set some goals with this person. Ask this person, where do you see yourself in 2 years? You've probably already asked them that. Where do you see us in 2 years? And have those challenging conversations, those 10-minute sweaty conversations, so you can get clarity and pray about them. And you should be praying together if you're at that point in your relationship too.
Yes, so I can see the spiritual aspect. If you are a Christ follower, if you want to have a Christ-centered relationship, I think the spiritual components is very important for us to take a consideration. What are those values or life goals you feel God's calling, whatever it can be, that is important for you if another person that is not aligning with you. Yeah, so those are things I like what you mentioned about is the words to bring it up in the discussion, open discussion, right? Like you said, in the next 6 months or so, how long that can be, what is your goal? We ask each other, we ask hard questions. How do you see or envision us to become? Sometimes one person said, oh, I can see us together forever, but another person doesn't have that vision or can see that in long term. So those are the things I think, yeah, relationship can develop over time, but also we have to, evaluate when we come to go through life over a period of time. Then we have to evaluate, hey, where are we heading to? What progress are we making?
It's almost like, and all of my clients are intelligent professional women, and when we have a job or we're doing a new project or something, it's kind of natural to evaluate how things are going at 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and a year. And those are great times, not hard and fast, but it's a great time after dating someone for 3 weeks or so. It's like, how does this feel? Am I excited to move forward with this? Or is it like, yeah, this might be working, I don't know, which is fine at 3 weeks. 6 weeks, you should have a pretty good feeling about like, yeah, this is somebody I'm having fun with. I want to pursue and see where this can go. And if you're still feeling like, well, there's still a lot of problems there, he doesn't really communicate very often, he's pretty cute, or, he's a really amazing Christian, I love talking to him, but there's some weird things about silence about questions that seem to be pretty serious that he isn't willing to talk about. Those are times at 6 weeks to 8 weeks to have some conversations. And you obviously know that each other are dating for a reason. You wouldn't be staying in it together if you weren't intending on a longer term relationship. So just say, and there's a tendency with women to like, where is this going? And we really don't want to get into this. Are we headed for marriage thing? Because we might be thinking that. But just, I'm enjoying this relationship. How are you feeling about it? Is a good question to ask after a couple months, because you've spent some time together. If you're into dating to create a long-term relationship, it's not only not a bad idea, it's a really good idea.
Right.
Just having those deeper conversations.
Yes, I'm with you on that. So here's another question as Christians who are in the dating pool and meeting each other. So, for us, brother and sister, we met together, that people they are not spiritually on their spiritual journey. They're not in the same level, let's say. One might be just in the beginner, one might be further down the road and be more mature than another person. So you talk about earlier, it's not our job to change the another person. It's not our job to say, hey, you need to go to church, you need to read the Bible, you need to do this, that for this relationship's sake, right? So how do you help people if people in a dating relationship and they're spiritually not quite on the same level, same maturity, or the other person just not as driven as the other partner spiritually? How would you suggest people in this area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was you all might recognize his name. I won't go into that, but he and his wife have been in ministry for, I think, about 25 or 30 years, and they met when she was still in college. He's 8.5 years older. And she said, when I was in college, I was just dating anybody that asked me to go out, because I really wasn't thinking about it, even though I was a Christian. And she went out of state to college. She went back to her home church, and she visited the young singles group. And this guy was in the young singles group, and some of her girlfriends said, yeah, he's not even dating anybody. He just said he's waiting for God to tell him who his wife is going to be. And that was so impressive. And they were both in their 20s, early 20s and late 20s. And I thought, what a great approach. And then also she said she decided that summer to just stop dating, because she had this other approach with whoever asked, basically, to have God's guidance in it. And she had a mission statement. I don't know that she sat down and wrote it, but I just loved it so much. She said, I asked God for someone that I would have to chase after spiritually for how he was going. And that's, in their ministry together, that's a beautiful match. But even to just write a mission statement about how you see your relationship, because we're really never going to be exactly on the same level as our partner, because God created us to be two different people, certainly inspiring each other, certainly in enhancing the faith of each other, and worshiping and reading the Bible together, however that looks. And another prayerful time with the Lord. How does this relationship look? How do you want it to look for me, Lord? And who am I looking for in this kind of aspect? What kind of description do you want me to have? And for that woman in her 20s to shift that around, and they ended up just getting rides in cars with groups of people and youth groups together, and And then he finally asked her out, and she turned him down because she wasn't dating that summer. She wasn't aware, even though she knew in the back of her mind that this is what some of her friends had told her his approach was. And finally, God said to her, do you remember what he said? He wasn't going to date anybody until he thought it was the one that God had chosen. And I think it's time for you to check out how that's going to go with him. So she, got a ride from him one day with some other people. And as he was dropping her off, she asked to talk to him. And she said, you had asked me out one day and I had turned you down, but I heard this about you and I'm interested in pursuing that. So really, to me, that's just a godly example of how that can go.
So it's worth to give it a try. Like what you said, two people never gonna be exactly on the same level, but that's okay. That's okay. As far as both of them has the open mindset, both have a desire to pursue after God, and we can work things out.
Yeah, and I think, it's important ahead of time before you really get into dating or before you move on from a breakup is this denominational commitment. I have one client who's very, very strictly clear on a certain denomination that she wants a partner from. And I believe that's either God's planted that desire in her heart or he is opening her mind to consider that. So that's something else to pray about. I was very much in that mindset for a long time. My first husband wasn't a Christian when I met him, but he was interested in me. So he went to church with me and became a Christian, and we were in that same denomination always. And then my second husband was a different denomination. And I told him that my denomination was really important to me, but I was open to discussing it. And he ended up joining my church. But that doesn't always have to be the case. Sometimes my mom, when she met my dad, she changed denominations. Some people leave both denominations and join a community church. So it's really following God's heart. There isn't a tried and true rule for it, but they are important things. Because I do have one client who loves to go to church. And I think I might have mentioned that before. She loves to go to church. Everything else works great in their marriage. And this actually works great, but she wasn't expecting it. She loves to go to church. She's an organist, had sung in the choir, and he is very spiritual. He leads, he goes to like homeless shelters and things on Sundays and leads Bible studies. He has a concern about the church itself right now in America, so he isn't into going to church every week. So that was a conversation they had before they got married. Is this something that will work for us? And it does work beautifully for them, but they did need to work through it.
That's a good example there, really. That's something we can compromise, can work through, work out together. And some of the things I think people hold on to dearly, what they consider really important than the relationship. So rather than sacrifice their values, they let go of the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is God leading with that? It can lead you both together. And remembering, the God's roles for men and women. We talked about that a little bit before. If the man is responsible to be the Christian leader in the home, that doesn't mean we give up our values as women. We participate. We're definitely involved in the conversation.
Yeah, right. I think something is worth to discover before we decide, should we continue working on the differences or should we end the relationship, especially when we talk about life goals, what is God's calling for us, what's our life purpose and our value system, and also morals, where do we set our morals? And so those kind of things are important. Before we commit further to a long-term relationship.
Right, very important. And like I said, it doesn't always flow naturally. So it's up to us, I think, as women. And I know maybe some men are listening too, each Christian, but each person is involved needs to decide to have that conversation. And it needs to be an authentic, honest conversation, and not with sometimes we have it with the fear, like, I don't want to lose a relationship, so I'm going to go into this conversation and just accept whatever is said. Knowing and trusting again that God has a relationship for us, that we can't mess up with what we ask or what we do. I mean, certainly we intend to do it right. But if it's really God's relationship for us, having a fear about that conversation, we need to let that fear go and trust that God's going to lead it. And oh my goodness, the beautiful relationships that result from that openness, honesty, and trusting in God for leading you forward together as a couple.
I really love the last part you said, Linda, about have a God-honoring conversation with the person. Okay, let's have a Christ-centered, God-honoring conversation, with some really important questions like values, morals, and life goals, purpose. I think those are very God-honoring conversation without, carry the fears or worry about lose the person or relationship. But instead, let's be honest, let's open, have a conversation that can lead to further growth or better bonds in a beautiful relationship or not, right?
Right.
But either way, I think God will guide two of them in that process. I would say trust in the process, right?
Yeah, right. Definitely trusting the process. And what comes to mind as you comment on that is, I think these questions aren't the ones to ask on the phone call before you've met in person, usually, unless you feel like it's time to ask them. But I have some clients who are like, the first date, they're okay, I have this list of questions. How many kids do you think you want? When do you think you want to be married? Do you want to live in this city? Do you want to be a missionary? How is your faith? And it can be so overwhelming when you've just met this person, and to really let it go and just at least wait a few weeks if you're interested in them. Enjoy your time together, because you're going to be, when you're in the relationship with the person God has chosen for you, you're going to be best friends. You're going to have so much fun. You're going to be able to laugh and enjoy each other no matter what. So that has to be woven in with it. And I have one client who's very, very serious, asked a lot of these questions in the beginning, and was realizing that she was scaring people off who might have been someone who had potential in the future, though God will bring them back around if that's the case. But to just kind of weave them together, time them out according to how the Holy Spirit leads you.
Yeah, again, another good point. You're just talking about that's have this friendship. And in the beginning, how do we feel about each other? Are we comfortable with each other's presence, right? Do we like each other even?
Exactly.
Before we put out of those serious stuff. Yeah, that was a good point.
Yeah.
So as time goes fast, I have more question for you. I know this is a very sensitive topic. But once again, as Christians, I know people there, we haven't really gone through schools how to date. What are the things that we need to pay attention to? Is that you were talking about develop a friendship first, and to me that's a foundation of all relationships, really. And also for folks out there, something I feel people want to know is how soon the physical part. I remember you mentioning about, women put the brake on the physical part and the men in some another area. But how important, how soon the physical should evolve. And if it goes too fast, too quick, sometimes it's not a good thing. I want to hear from you, your experience perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is really important, and it has to include God, because we are humans with human needs and drives. When we get hungry, we go in the kitchen and have something to eat. When we're feeling physically attracted to someone, our human nature is to get physically attracted and get into a physical relationship. And yeah, it is the woman's responsibility to pace out the physical relationship, and it's the man's responsibility to pace out the emotional attachment part of the relationship. Usually women fall in love, like, oh, this is great, I think I'm in love with this guy. not always, but that's often the case. And men are more physically attracted first, often before they're ready to make an emotional commitment. So yeah, and God has to be involved in this, because to me, like anything else that we do in our flesh, is if he's not involved, it's not going to be something that we can do ourselves. And having been in the Al-Anon program and realizing God paces us, we have to trust in God for everything. So we need to know that ahead of time. And what does God say in the Bible? God designed a physical relationship as sex for marriage. So we're talking about the actual, being in a sexual relationship. How did God design it, and how are we intended to be? The clients that I've worked with that have the most successful relationships and the easiest time declared ahead of time no sex before marriage. And early on, within one of them, on her first date, though he was kind of surprised to hear that, but he was glad at least she was thinking about sex, is what he said. But early on, that's how you see things, and that's what you want, and to know in your heart that the Holy Spirit is helping you commit to that. And then, what happens between kissing and sex is really something that needs to be prayed about, and follow that lead. But those relationships that went the best, they were married pretty quickly. And these are, once again, they're both of the ones I'm thinking of. In fact, all three of the ones I'm thinking of are over 50, realized that they were very attracted to each other, that they were really wanted to be exclusive fairly quickly, within 8 weeks or so. We're engaged within 2 months to 4 months, and married between 6 months and a year. So knowing that this is what they wanted, following that path that God had created for them, and then not dragging it out and saying, this is what we're holding off on our physical relationship for 2 years. That's not realistic, and I don't think that's how God designed us. My son also, he was actually the one who insisted on waiting for marriage in his relationship with his wife. So it isn't necessarily always the woman who follows that plan, but it's important for a woman not to expect the man to be in charge of that for her.
I don't know if I'm hearing you this correctly, but apparently women, we have to grow into the self-control, especially the physical chemistry or the desires, arousal, whatever going on inside of our body, to check with us, as you're mentioning about bring that piece into our prayer, and to deal with them in our prayer with God. And how can we really contribute to the relationship, especially in the physical part? Do we lead, not just the men's job to lead us, but how do we respond in the relationship in a healthy and godly way, without bringing into temptation, into the relationship too early, if it's immature in the beginning. But like you said, there's a time, like maybe 2 to 4 months. It's not a set in stone. To different people, different into the relationship. If two feel really this is the right fit, I believe to come to a place, two hearts will realize, hey, this is the right person for me. I feel good with him or her. And then they become more engaged in the sense of maybe engagement. What was you saying? Okay.
Right.
And then from there, then to the 6 to 1 year, a period of time to prepare for the final decision make for marriage.
Pretty typically, yeah, like you said, it's different it's different for everyone, but that's pretty common. Yeah, and really, I've met people who have been married within 2 months that it has worked, but that's pretty quick. So often there's a lot of chemistry involved there, and the chemistry needs to balance out with the intellectual wisdom that God gives us too. So spending a little more time before you get into that. And I need to say that I didn't follow that. With my first husband, I slept with my first husband before we got married. We got engaged fairly quickly after that. But he said he noticed, and as I said, he became a Christian while we were dating. After we got married, he said, oh, this really makes a big difference, doesn't it? in our physical relationship that we are married. And there was a huge difference. So just following God's plan is so much more obvious in my mind, and from a lot of my clients, the ones that have told me about that. It is a really important step in consideration to get the richness in that relationship that God intends for that marriage.
Yeah, I think it's really important for us to know God's will and purpose for us, individual as women, and also His purpose for relationship, for marriage.
Right.
Really hold on to what God desires for us is important, because it protect us from later on might be heartbreaking things.
Right.
Because once the physical involved, there's more chemistry, more hormones, everything involved, and that, yeah. So when things, if they don't work out later on, so that brings more hardship for the breakup.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I'll just throw this in there too. It's one of the coaches that I was in a program of this coach for about 6 months. He had a group coach program, and he said he talked about when he met his wife, that, and she was, a Christian as well. And she just said, when there was physical attraction, she said, just know that I'm thinking about that and I am interested in that with you, but this is what I've committed to, and this is what I'm going to do. And I ask you to honor that. So, both people know that there's interest in it. It's not like a frozen statue for 6 months and then you get engaged and married, and then, it would be hard to know whether you're going to actually have a chemistry if you get too extreme with that. So just honoring the other person, allowing them to know, make sure they know that you're interested, you're attracted to them physically, and that this is what you're wanting to do to honor God's plan for marriage.
Again, with a good conversation, open, honest conversation, and that's yeah, where it should go. I believe once we honor God and honor each other, respect each other, as boundary, whatever can be our values and our morals in that setting, that's a good way to go. And also we talk about, and that's just wrapped up today's section, and time really goes fast. Some of the relationship that once we get into, and on both set their journey on the path of growth and development, I would say some of the issues can be compromised, can be worked out, even through a mentor or, therapist or coach, like what you do, what I do, and to really dive in deeper. Maybe both of them carry their past, their baggage into the relationship, or maybe they have a communication issues, those kind of things that we can work through, right, in the relationship. But also we talk about what are those key components that is more important that we consider, what are those for good, for healthy relationship. But if those pieces are missing, such as a lack of a character, or person cheating or do whatever in the beginning of a relationship, that's not a healthy. So that might end up breakups, those kind of things. So, right, Linda?
Right. Yeah. And if you're noticing some of those things, cheating, or, there's a lot of discussion about alcohol or gambling or something like that in the early parts of your relationship, that is not going to get better. It's going to get more so. So sometimes we think like, oh, that's once the relationship is stronger and closer, then those things will fall away. That's not the case. And that's what my daughter, who was so wise with all the dating that she did, she said they're putting on their best self.
Yeah.
During that, she said 5 months.
Yeah.
So don't think like, oh, well, he's this way now, but he'll get better. He wants to get better. He wants to do this. Look at each other now. Don't date for potential. Date for where you are now, both of you in this moment, and you will grow together as God plans it in the future. And the other thing I wanted to say related to breakups is, if you were in a longer term relationship, if it wasn't just, the last guy you were dating for a few weeks or a few months, take some time. It's hard, but it just is highly recommended to take 3 to 6 months and don't date. 6 months is recommended. Just don't date for 6 months. And you really, really want to, because if you've been in a long-term relationship or newly divorced, it feels good to have attention and somebody to ask you out, but try to hold to, I'm not going to date for a few months, because then you can kind of become who you are, kind of let go of the coupleness that you had, and spend some time with the Lord, journaling, coming up with, like we talked about last time, who do I want to be? Who am I? Who is this person that I really want to be with? And just be prayerful and do some healing. If you must date immediately, I just really want to date somebody and there's a guy who asked me out, keep it light. Don't jump into anything that feels like, oh, he wants to marry me. We've been dating for 3 weeks. That just comes up a lot in that interim time, and know that it can come up. Have fun, you know, going to play putt or going to dinner, but try to hold off for a little while before you jump into dating.
I think that's a very wise suggestion for us to come out of folks out there, come out of a unhealthy or undesired relationship, and that our soul, our spirit, our body, every area we need healing, right? We need that time to reset our system. And like what you said, to figure out what our values are, goals are, who am I, you know, after the relationship. And then you become yourself, right? What I really want and desire for. And for that period of time, you mentioned about 2 to 6 months, sometimes it's necessary. It's necessary, yeah. Very good discussion. I enjoyed the section with you, Linda. So do you have a last word for folks out there if they are right in the middle of breaking up, heartbreak, you know, experience heartbreaks? What would you say to them?
There's a Bible verse, Psalm 84, I think it's 11. No good thing will he withhold from those who walk uprightly. So just be where you are now. Know that God has something wonderful for you, and honor the grief that you're in and the pain that you're in, but know that you don't have to stay in that there is a bright future ahead for you. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, from Jeremiah 29. And just trust that there's wonderfulness ahead for you, and just allow yourself to be in the grief. Honor the other person, forgive them, forgive yourself, and know that there's better things.
Yes, much better to move on in a healthy place rather than just try to avoid some emptiness, try to find some comfort from another human being from the breakups. So I think that's a wise and that's a more healthy way to deal with breakups. Thank you, Linda, so much. And for today's episode, I certainly enjoyed spending time with you and with the discussion with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was wonderful to connect with you again and to spend this time together.
Yeah, thank you for our listeners, and stay tuned, and we will have more sections coming after this.